Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and, of course, unauthorized.tv. Thanks for tuning in tonight. We are here in the lair, as usual. And thanks for tuning in. Those who are members might enjoy the fact that there are a pair of new emojis for you. Go ahead and try typing in 2020 or Trump. See what happens. No reason for it particularly. Just throwing it out there, throwing it in there. There we go. I have a feeling that some of you will be finding reasons to throw those in from time to time. Anyhow, so tonight is the end of the "You're Doing Great, Kid" tour. I talked to Owen today. He's in very good spirits. Really looking forward to tonight's show. And in fact, he actually sent me this, which is kind of cool. It's the hangar where they're going to be doing the show tonight. Welcome, Andy Evick. And so it's going to be amazing, I think. Folks have been to the previous 3 shows, have all been quite entertained, and hopefully the final show is going to end on a serious bang, which actually leads us into tonight's topic, which is, of course, calling the enemy's bluff. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that there were attempts to whip up SJW swarms to try to shut down Owen's tour. There was a very half-assed attempt in Sandpoint, Idaho. There was an article that was published in the local newspaper, and it was just, totally trivial, totally irrelevant. There was a more serious effort, an actual effort to convince the venue in Indiana, which was Friday night. And this attempt, you can look it up and you can see it on Facebook, maybe to a certain extent on Twitter. Anyhow, they were trying to pressure the owner of the venue into dropping Owen. And there's all the usual accusations of white supremacy and neo-Nazi. And there were, of course, they always begin pretending that the owner of the venue doesn't know anything about the person involved, the target. They talk about the wonderful theater and how they certainly don't know the evil that they're dealing with. Welcome, Stature Man. And so when that doesn't work, then they go to the threats. They talk about how Antifa is going to show up, how there's going to be camera crews and the news media and this, that, and the other thing. Well, guess what? There was absolutely nothing. No Antifa, no camera crews, not even the individual who kept posting this stuff under a false account. Of course, we looked into it, and of course, the person's identity was fake, and they did call the venue, and when the venue asked them for identification, of course, they even arranged to set the venue up very close to a police station, just in case. Nothing. Not a thing. And so what's important to remember from this, come on guys, you know the drill, grow up. Nobody needs your comments about the obvious. Just welcome Column Rock Talks. Yeah, and if the stream gets disrupted, just refresh, restore. Even if it terminates entirely, it'll just be divided into two. And if you want to see the whole thing, if you miss anything, just watch it on unauthorized.tv. So the point is that while you have to understand that there is the potential for trouble, and you should always prepare accordingly, you shouldn't assume that the threats are legitimate. They're not. It's fake. They're trying to intimidate you into modifying your behavior. Don't fall for it. Don't allow others to fall for it. Explain it to people and let them know that this is normal. They always make these kind of threats. They always pull this kind of stuff. It's total nonsense. So, congratulations, Cole. He has a second son whose name is Owen. So here's to Owen the second, as it were. And so it's very important to always call the enemy's bluff. Don't modify your behavior on the basis of posturing. Don't retreat just because somebody made some scary noises at you. That's what conservatives do. That's what cucks do. That's not what we do. That's not winning. That's not crushing. Okay? So every time that this happens, it's important to let people know. That's why I'm letting all of you know that the threats happened, and of course they were not followed through on in any way, shape, or form. So keep that in mind, because the next time there will be threats, there will be posturing, and the chances are very, very high that absolutely nothing is going to happen. It's all bluffing. It's all posturing. It's all attempting to get you to modify your behavior. Tyler says, when we call their bluff, are we to be polite? We don't need to be polite or rude or anything. We just ignore them. We just go about our business. Shell asks, hey Vox, what is your opinion about the Molise, Italy province offering $8,000 per year for 3 years to people who will move and start businesses? They're serious about it. There's a lot of little plans in Italy and other communities in Europe where they're trying to get people to come and move there, start businesses, start families, etc., etc. And this is evidence. This is absolutely evidence that what Owen is recommending, get married, get a homestead, start having children. This is, if a woman says that she doesn't want a relationship but doesn't want to see others, I would just move on. That doesn't even make sense. Andy Evick says this goes double for people threatening to take you to court or sue. Oh, exactly. Exactly. People who idly threaten to sue people or to go to court generally know nothing about the time and expense that's involved. You know, Unseen says, I just remember the media managing to get the SJWs to swarm on Roosh. Yeah, the media themselves who are swarming. If there's that level of media connection, if there's that level of media attention, and so forth, because he was no longer, running and hiding. The media, in many ways, is like a pack of dogs. If you run, they will chase you with the idea of bringing you down. But they have absolutely no intention whatsoever of allowing you to hijack their mic, which is exactly what he did by calling a press conference and by getting them, bringing them in and putting his message and using them to put his message out. They didn't want to do that. And that's why they ran away. He stopped running. What they always want is they want that furtive picture of someone looking outside the house, pictures taken from a distance, all this stuff that makes you look like you are shady in some way. Then they can concoct the narrative about you. Is there a video of the press conference? I think he got it recorded. I don't know. But the point is that even when there is a concerted international media effort against you, you can still jujitsu them. You can still turn it around. So, Tyler says, I've had some employees quit and threaten to contact the Better Business Bureau, and I don't know what L&I is, to report me for whatever they were projecting. My wife and I just laugh now because they never do a thing. Of course not. They usually need something to go on. I wouldn't recommend ignoring it if you actually did, behave in a questionable way towards someone or something. But when you've done nothing wrong and you can document whatever it is that caused you to get rid of them, they're not going to do anything, because as soon as somebody looks into it, they'll see that, oh, okay, we're dealing with a whack job. Yeah, there is a video of the press conference apparently. So, anyhow, this is the Darkstream 500. We've done 500 of these streams, apparently, which seems kind of crazy to me. But here we are. And, if you had told me 2 years ago that I would be a YouTuber, much less the chief content officer of a video channel, I almost certainly would have laughed at you. But, here we are. We've done 500 dark streams and we have nearly 500 people watching live. So that's good to see. And I really appreciate all of you who tune in. I appreciate the 410, now apparently 413 channel members. The channel members are particularly key because in the event that that our beloved hosts elect to play demonetization games, we have over 400 people who have standing in order to rectify the situation. And on top of that, the what is it now? About 5,500 subscribers to Unauthorized are fundamentally changing the game there. That's why we were able to do this tour. That's why we are able to tackle these documentary projects that we're going to be announcing soon. In fact, just last night, the Kurgan and I were emailing about a very significant literary documentary that we had been talking about for years, and we suddenly realized, hey, we can do this now. What a lot of people may not realize is that I have hours of exclusive video content of Umberto Eco on his visit to Minnesota back in 1996, I believe. It was right after he wrote The Island of the Day Before, and it's interviews, a visit to a monastery, all kinds of crazy stuff. And so, what we're working towards, both with Unauthorized, with Castelia Deluxe, et cetera, is we are focused on the preservation of knowledge and passing it on to future generations. And you guys are all part of that. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're passing information from me to you. You're passing information on to people in your lives, and just one step at a time. One thing that's really interesting, by the way, and I didn't realize this, it really astonished me how much interest there was in these deluxe leather-bound books. And I didn't realize that the Franklin Library no longer exists. They shut it down in 2000. All that's left now is the Folio Society and the Easton Press. And this is a serious problem. And it's a problem that we're going to solve at Castelia with your help. So, Vox, the Biden photograph meme from Trump crushed. Yes, I've seen it. It was amazing. And LJ Third says it's hard to find good quality anything these days, including books. Exactly. Kindle Unlimited is a steaming mass of semi-literate sewage. It's dreadful. And the only people that really profit from it are people who just consume literary sewage, to be consuming it. It's the all-you-can-eat buffet of literature. And I very much second Tyler USA's request. Please pray for Vox and Owen and everybody involved. Yeah, I believe that's one of the reasons why we are successful and generally left alone in what we do. I believe it's because we're doing what we're called to do. Cactus Eater Bear asks, I'm a couple of days behind on the blog and stream. How do we express interest? Well, again, I'm only interested if you have really serious interest. A deluxe in the title. There was talk about Charles Owen's Byzantine history yesterday. Heads up, you can get the Kindle version for 99 cents. That's a good deal. Grimlock69 says, is it a sin to own or use a firearm even in self-defense? No, absolutely not. A page I found earlier defined this as answering evil with evil, but that doesn't seem right to me. Also said God doesn't care for borders. You should ignore literally everything that page or the individual who provides that page or the organization who publishes that page tells you. They are wrong, wrong, wrong. Jesus said if you don't have a sword, Sell your cloak and buy one. Turning the other cheek does not mean failing to defend yourself. Furthermore, God sets the borders of the nations. He literally told the people of Israel not to go beyond the specific borders that he had set and not to meddle with or interfere with the nations beyond those borders. Furthermore, when the Samaritan woman asked Jesus to partake in what he was there to give, he said, "You don't give the children's food to the dogs." That is not the expression of somebody who supports open borders or believes in open immigration. Dr. Azume said, "Head to Super Chat for 500. Here's to 500 more. You enjoying these cam girl sessions yet, Vox?" I wouldn't say that I'm enjoying them, but I am accustomed to them. I no longer find them difficult for the most part. And even when, it's 7:15 p.m. and I haven't sent out any notifications and I have no idea what I'm going to talk about, I no longer feel like I can't do it, that I need to have something prepared ahead of time. I know that there will be questions, there will be topics that will come up that we can address, that are worth addressing. And also it's good just because I think that in order to foster momentum, in order to keep the inertia of the stream and the audience interest and so forth continued, or moving forward, it's very important not to skip more than one a week. So there will be times when I just can't do it. I'm traveling, I'm busy with something, I have a project due the next day, whatever. But I usually try to carve out at least half an hour so that we can hit whatever, hit the issue of the day, hit the topic of the day, see what's going on with folks. Vox, have you read any Curtis Yarvin? I find him... what exactly does Matthew 19:23-24 mean? I have no idea. I don't have the entire Bible memorized. Let's see. Thoughts on Murray Rothbard? Well, I think that he was brilliant. He is one of my favorite economists to read. I think that he has excellent critiques of the state, of state power and so forth. But I think that he gets fundamentally tripped up by his background. And I'm not just talking to his heritage, I'm talking about his intellectual influences. I believe that he was intelligent and had enough intellectual integrity to that he would have become a full-blown nationalist and abandoned libertarianism had he lived long enough to see the results of free trade and open borders meeting with sufficiently advanced technology. However, I also think that he was fundamentally wrong because he was always pro-usury. I've actually read his very long history of his Austrian history of economic thought. It's 2 volumes, probably about 1,200 pages total. And for him, the history of economic freedom and development is Christians relaxing their usury laws over time. And I think that so fundamentally gets the core problem wrong, that it's it has to impact how we regard him historically. What do you like about Andrew Jackson? I like that he pulled the charter on the Bank of the United States. Vox, can you tell what is the book on the table to your right? Yes, that's the Bible. Um, let's see. Oman's Byzantine history is also on Project Gutenberg for now. No, I'm not going to turn up the volume. The volume is fine. Um, let's see here. Molyneux's breakdown on the Joker movie made it sound like they traced his character out from the Voxiversity Gamma. I think it's unlikely, but it's entirely possible. You never know. Um, yeah, I thought that I didn't read Stefan's, or I didn't see Stefan's, but I did read Mike Cernovich's, and I rather enjoyed his. I very much doubt I'll see the movie. I have no interest in it. Thomas W. says, thoughts on the Rothschilds? Well, I mean, they were far-sighted and evil, and helped bring about the globalism that threatens the world and Western civilization now. But if you look at their latest generations, I think that they're as degraded as Harvard University and practically every other elite institution in the West. When I say that nothing works anymore, I mean, even the evil that we face doesn't work very well anymore. Do you agree with E. Michael Jones that Protestantism was terrible for Christendom? No, I don't, because I think that Catholicism had become so corrupt that uh, Protestantism was inevitable. And I think that it's a mistake to blame Protestantism for the Enlightenment. They're two different things. And the Enlightenment, if you think about it, was primarily a reaction to the Catholic Church anyhow. So, where does honest lending within a community become usury? Uh, that's a longer question. Then we don't have time to address that. Um, Dr. Azume says, oh, I've always wanted to tell you this as well. I'm glad that you're on our side and not the other. What would you be like to be asked tonight? Um, I don't really have any questions in mind. I'm just kind of addressing the stuff that you bring up. I mean, the key thing, people sometimes say, well, you only talk about the title subject for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and then you just kind of go on and engage with the community. Well, I like to think that the community here is intelligent enough to grasp the point in 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, don't believe what the enemy says. Call their bluff. Got it? It's not difficult. Um, oh yeah, I might have missed a couple super chats. I will check that out. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Do you believe salvation is by faith or by works? I believe salvation is by faith. Works are the consequence of faith. If you don't see any works, then you can probably conclude that there is no faith, or the faith is weak, or the faith is not genuine. But the salvation does not come through the works. Is Jay Dyer a Sigma? I have absolutely no idea. Probably not, but it's possible. Satoshi Bear sends $2. Charles Carlson says, congrats on 500 streams. Thank you. K-Clip said, Molyneux seems like a nationalist gatekeeper. I don't believe so. Why would someone willingly live in the GTA? Probably the most degenerate and satanic city in Canada. Maybe he has family there. Maybe that's where he's from. I don't know, but he's understanding to be where yours is. You know, back 5 years ago, maybe more, 6, 7 years ago, I believed in free trade. I firmly believed in free trade. It wasn't until reading Ian Fletcher's book that I went, wait a minute, this can't be right. And so I went through Ricardo, ended up deconstructing that logic and realized it was totally wrong. I was challenged to address Henry Hazlitt's argument for free trade, and I found 15 specific errors in it, all of which you can read on the blog. You know, and I changed my mind. Did that make me, you know, a nationalist gatekeeper because I subscribed to free trade? No, I had insufficient information. I hadn't had time to, I hadn't thought properly through everything and questioned some of the things that I've been taught and some of my assumptions. JB14 says, happy 500 and many happy returns. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Let's see. The Brisbane Archdiocese held a plenary council this week. They promoted the idea of developing a blessing for same-sex marriage. Inquisition needed. Absolutely. It's kind of funny. I've been reading these Captain Alatriste books, and they mention the Inquisition from time to time. And of course, the Inquisition is supposed to be the bad guy. But, you know, the more you read it, the more you think, you know, wow, we could really use them again now. How to red pill my Democrat boomer family. You need to use rhetoric. You need to figure out what their emotional triggers are and then pull those triggers. Just giving them information is not going to change their minds. Here, read up on the difference between rhetoric and dialectic and understand which you have to use. Thoughts on Quigley's tragedy and hope in general? It's a fascinating history. He's got a lot of interesting things to say. Specifically, his foregoing the use of references and how it impacts the veracity of his work. Well, I think that his work, I think that you can largely trust in the veracity of his work because a lot of what he described is stuff that we've seen played out since. I mean, the only way, references are useless. Sources are useless. The only if you are relying upon references and sources as means of ascertaining credibility, you're fundamentally making a mistake. References and sources are for you to more deeply understand the material. You know, I mean, supplying lots of references and sources is one of the primary ways that people sell you on total nonsense. The only way to test an argument or a piece of information is to see how well it serves as a predictive model. if it accurately predicts what's going to happen, then you can have confidence in it. This is why the sociosexual hierarchy is so important and so useful, is because it correctly predicts human behavior. You know, if you tell me that somebody's a gamma, I can tell you how he's going to behave most of the time in certain given situations. It's not difficult. You know, same with everybody else, alpha, omega, etc. Do you have a patron or favorite saint? No, I don't. I'm not Catholic, and I did have a, I don't know where it is now, but I did have a history of the saints book that I used to find useful for writing, and so I had some favorite stories, but I can't remember, you know, which names went with which story and so forth. So. John, what did John Yossarian say? That's true. He says, the more you grapple these, the more we watch streams on unauthorized. Fabit 1713 said, right on, John Yossarian, they drove me into subscribing to unauthorized. Thanks, Ally Weasels. Best decision I made in a while. Yeah, you know, if you're not subscribed to unauthorized yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. And don't quote me on this. Don't hold me accountable to this. But I have heard that we may have the first 2 apps this week. That's all I want to say. I'm not going to say which apps. I'm not going to say when they'll be. I don't know for sure. But I have been informed that we will probably have 2 of them this week. Cheers from Japan. I guess it would be Ohio gozaimasu now, right? Anyhow, Japan, or JREX US. Oh, J as in Jews. Then what is the future of Israel? Who will protect the most moral army from evil terrorists? EU army. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? And this is why I, was referring to when I sent a rather acerbic note to David Goldberg, pointing out that it was very, very short-sighted to strip mine the USA and attempt to turn them into mercenaries for 50 years. That's the problem with the grasshopper mentality. They strip mine everything and then find out that, they have to move on. And, what happens when there isn't somewhere useful to move on to? What happens when you needed, it's eating the seed corn. And that's the problem when you're not accustomed to building and farming and doing those things. It fundamentally creates a mindset that means that the predator is going to crash with the prey. Always. When the rabbits are abundant, when the deer are abundant, the wolves are fat and they increase too. But if they eat too many deer, then the wolf population crashes. This is not difficult. Should you only read the Bible in the old way it is written, or is it okay to find it in more modern ways of writing, speaking? No, it's fine to read it in newer translations as long as they're reasonably accurate. Do not read the Schofield Bible. Do not read the Bibles where they say that God is a woman and so forth. But stuff like the Living Bible and so forth is going to lead you in the right direction. Yeah, Children's Bible, exactly. The Children's Bible's great. Would Martin Luther was a Catholic be a good rhetorical rebuttal to an evangelical's Christ was a grabbler? Yes, absolutely. That's a excellent rebuttal. Good rhetoric. Congratulations on 500. Any recommendations for a book to understand Andrew Jackson's war with the bank? Can we use it as a model to fight the Fed? Um, the first book, there's actually a good book. I think it was by Murray Rothbard. It's not so much about Andrew Jackson as about the bank itself. It's called A Monetary History of the United States. That's a good place to start. What are your favorite books from the New Testament? Probably Ephesians. I like Ephesians because it deals with the spiritual warfare. Um, and I like the book of John because I like the perspective from which he tells the gospel tales. Do Sigmas often find themselves pulled into competitions they didn't agree to? Um, well, I think that people occasionally try to pull us into things, but I think we do a very good job of not being pulled into things, period. Um, in the weight room, do people tell you they're catching up? No, no. I mean, especially not these days. Um, I'm just trying to maintain these days. I'm not trying to, build up per se, other than with pull-ups. Um, let's see. Please be social galactic. No, well, social galactic is coming very soon, but no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the unauthorized apps. Why are all my favorite once edgy alt artists and musicians clueless SJWs now? They always were. They were supposed to be cool, weren't they? Is it some covert deal they made for success? Well, it's not a covert deal. It's about um, it's about following the herd. Alt musicians are not independent thinkers. A different style of music doesn't mean that you're not following the herd. In fact, they probably were following the herd. They just followed the herd in a different direction. Wouldn't it be easier to just push them off the bluff? We're not dealing with Wile E. Coyote here. Spent the whole day cleaning house. How are chores done in your house, Vox? That's what children are for. Wow. Nice. Cole Carey says 19 pull-ups last time I maxed. 19 pull-ups at 215 is huge. Um, what 17 is my record. Actually, my record is 17, 15, 13. Right now, I think I'm at, what was it? 13, 11, 10. So we're working on getting it back up. Keep in mind that because of an injury, I hadn't done any for something like 8 years. And so when I first started, I think I did 644. So we're getting there. So, is the Old Testament literal or allegorical in your view? Yes, it's literal in parts and it's allegorical in parts. And if you know how to read, it's not too difficult to tell which is which. You know, when in the Song of Solomon, he talks about uh, a woman's breasts being two young deer drinking at the stream. That is not literal. What type of pull-ups? Behind the head. Do you have any more edgy comics coming out? Well, I don't know if they're edgy, but yeah, we've got more comics coming out. Avalon 5 and 6 soon. The new Quantum Mortis. We've got a Quantum Mortis one-off to do. The first two Swan Knight sagas and Alt Hero Q number 2 are all coming relatively soon. I have no idea who Alan Watts is. Let's see. All right, well, I think that's it for now. So enjoy the show tonight. If you are in Ohio, put up a comment on the blog or two. Let us know what you thought of it. Let us know how it went. We're getting now that now that we know that the Franklin Library is no more. I'm going to give some serious thought to something similar to their 100 greatest books of all time. That's a project for down the road, obviously, but it's something that's going to need to be done since nobody else is doing it. And anyhow, have a good evening. Enjoy the show, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next Darkstream. Darkstream number 501. Have a good evening. This is the Darkstream. I'm Box Day.